Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior and respected branding and marketing professional from Chicago, USA, Mr. Jim Heininger. Jim, welcome to the show.
Nice to be with you.
Thank you. Jim is the founder and principal of the Rebranding Experts. He's a growth communicator, a change architect, and a rebranding evangelist. So, Jim, before we start talking rebranding, tell me a little bit about your own journey and what inspired you to start Rebranding Experts in 2017.
So it's spent about 20, 25 years in the large global communications agency business, working on terrific clients, Miller Brewing Company, Motorola, Anheuser-Busch, Wendy's, Procter & Gamble. Went then to do a very special assignment at McDonald's Corporation, where it's in-house. And that lasted for about 3 to 8 years. It was helping sort through some major issues, fixing their corporate reputation. And after that, I wanted to go back into the agency business. And McDonald's said, we want you to keep working for us. So open your own firm and we'll support you and allow you to be able to follow your dreams while we also are able to work collaboratively with you. Started doing a number of rebrandings and really saw the need for a dedicated firm that focused solely on this, that had a very thoughtful, well-built methodology to how they approached a rebranding exercise from the beginning to the end. So we launched in 2017 Rebranding Experts and have been working with a variety of organizations, all different industries, all different sizes, but all wanting to pursue this kind of strategic transformation and needing somebody who understands the process, can keep them on track, and really help to achieve their dreams of what a rebranding can do for the organization.
Amazing. Thank you. And for my viewers and listeners, how would you define rebranding and how is it more than just a marketing strategy?
Yeah. So we believe that rebranding is a strategic growth accelerator, an enterprise-wide strategic growth accelerator. It is a chance to reset your organization, to facilitate change throughout it that is meant to achieve some new strategic direction. Usually organizations rebrand because they're forced to or need to, which means perhaps a merger or an acquisition or a leadership change, something that's forcing them to actually change their brand. Good majority of them, though, are ones where you want to pursue an opportunity to, to follow a new strategic direction, to open up to new markets, to add new services, to be more relevant to your customers today and in the future. And they purposefully go about changing their brand and their organization to achieve new business results. So we see it as it has to be aligned behind a strategic direction change, but it's then standing up an entirely new brand, a new story to your customers, a new name for your organization, a new look and feel to it, a new customer experience. Everything about it needs to be reset so that you can pursue your future goals.
Great response. And based on all the work that you've been doing, what are some common misconceptions companies and their leaders have about rebranding?
Yeah, so most don't realize how much it costs because you are making a pretty major investment, how long it takes, not only to go through the strategic and the creative process, but then you also need to trademark your new brand if you're operating across borders. And so that itself can take a lot of time. It's that what they don't realize is how awakening it feels because you really spend time trying to understand who you really are, where your desired direction is, your new desired customer, and so forth. And it's really aha moments for the organization throughout the whole process because they're really getting a chance to move beyond that business as usual, the way they've always done it, the kind of historical things that boxed in the way they viewed their business. All that can be left behind now, and you can pursue and stand up an entirely new company to be
Hmm.
able to go after those future strategic directions. So most don't realize that while there's a lot of challenges to it,
Yeah.
there's a lot of really eye-opening kind of steps along the way.
Hmm. Well said. And Jim, at what stage do you go in, or when do leaders realize that there is a need to rebrand versus a simple repositioning of their brand?
Yeah. So usually it's the result of business performance is not where they want it to be. And
Mhm.
it's a dissection of why is that? And it's realizing that the current brand is dragging you down. It's tethering you to the past.
Hmm.
It doesn't have relevance to the new generations of customers that you're trying to gain, or the new products or services that you're trying to expand into. And that brand is it's like an anchor. It's
Yeah.
just kind of pulling you. It's not letting you move forward.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much the time where they say, okay, so our business strategy may be moving more aggressively than our brand allows us to.
Mhm.
Let's fix the brand.
Hmm. And for my viewers and listeners, could you give me an example of something that is in public domain?
So, one of the biggest, most talked about rebrandings in the last several months is Jaguar,
Yeah.
the automotive company who made a very bold kind of transformation.
Yeah.
And it's a good classic example to look at, because Jaguars, their sales were not good, their market share was sinking, their profits were shrinking as well,
Hmm.
and they needed to address this whole issue of electric cars, EV cars,
Yeah.
and and realize that their future was not going to be able to be sustainable
Hmm.
based upon their old customer base, that really like those historical heritage
Yeah.
kind of things about Jaguar and what it meant in terms of performance and so
Hmm.
forth. Their business strategy was to lean fully into electric vehicles, to be much more modern and futuristic looking in the design of the cars, and they needed a brand that could support that then. And so they first of all tinkered with the logo, which that got everybody, a buzz and talking. And then they started dropping some interesting videos that were very futuristic, didn't have cars at all, but started setting the tone of what their new brand was going to be and look like.
Hmm. Hmm.
Before they finally launched it, they announced it. And then a couple weeks later, they introduced the new models of cars
Yeah.
at an art show of all things in
Hmm.
Miami,
Hmm.
really leaning into that new futuristic design element that was kind of outpaced any other auto manufacturers.
Hmm.
All armchair marketers have been up in arms, talking about what a disaster it was and that they went too far and so forth. I actually think it was brilliant. I think it was a
Hmm.
masterclass
Yeah.
in rebranding, because the rebranding needed to support the business decision
Correct.
that they had in terms of going all EV and dramatic, change in the design of the cars,
Hmm.
figuring out what was that little slice of heritage that you needed to hang on to,
Hmm.
but moving forward, because nobody invests in the past, they invest in the
Hmm.
future.
Hmm. Well said. You also emphasize that rebranding is a strategic growth accelerator. Help me understand this, and if possible, give me an example.
Yeah, and we look at it really as an enterprise-wide strategic growth accelerator. So in the rebranding process, we will always ask different parts of the organization,
Hmm.
what do you want to capitalize on in terms of
Right.
this rebranding? So if it's customer service, let's redesign the whole customer, experience, that will support the new brand.
Hmm.
Operations. Is there anything that they want to change up in their operations model? Take advantage of this rebranding to be able to do that. Certainly, finance, HR, all these departments, we make sure come to the table and
Hmm.
say, this is your chance to change and leave behind anything that no longer supports your ability to grow.
Hmm.
Let's shed it. Let's move forward. Let's come up with, really dynamic new way of going to market.
Hmm.
And that then makes it an enterprise strategic growth accelerator.
Hmm. Wow. when it comes to rebranding, um, it is believed that naming and design is crucial. How do you approach these aspects?
Yeah, because changing the name of your company is a big decision.
Yeah.
And it has to have leadership support. It has to have employee engagement. Everybody has to be there behind the new brand name. So it's really a discovery process where
Hmm.
we spend a lot of time, almost like in an archaeological dig, finding, all the things the equities that are important to your brand from its beginning, and which of those need to continue forward into the future, which are
Hmm.
valuable enough that they help define the future.
Yeah.
And and once we get to that strategic direction of what the rebrand is to present the company going forward and its promise to customers,
Hmm.
then our namers start to go to work figuring out what are words that illustrate that in an interesting way. And
Hmm.
boy, you dive into all sorts of different areas of consideration. You look at, industry terms, you look at historical terms, you look at foreign language words that help in many countries in terms of trademarking. Because let's face it, almost every good name out there has already been taken. So
Right.
you have to be very clever and creative in what you come up with.
Hmm.
But it's a process that, we literally will come up with thousands of names and you keep narrowing it down and putting it through kind of a strategic filter
Hmm.
to the
Hmm.
point where you start to come up with a handful of them that you start to then share with the client. And it really opens their eyes in terms
Hmm.
of, oh, we didn't realize that was
Yeah.
possible.
Hmm.
And it gets them thinking in different ways. And you start to see them drifting toward an approach with a name, which then you double down on and you go fully into and looking at all sorts of iterations of name possibilities and
Hmm.
so forth. Once that name is decided, then the visual identity can be developed where
Hmm.
you look at what do we want to present this word in a way from colors, from visuals, and so forth that brings it to life even more so and help tell the story even more. And so then just like the naming, you go through rounds and
Yeah.
rounds of logo developments and mood boards to see what really hits, what strategically fits, but what hits emotionally
Hmm.
with leaders of the organization as well too, so that they can say, "Yeah, this is something I can get behind. I can
Hmm.
support this."
Well said. And Jim, what, in your view, is the role of the CEO and the executive leadership team
And I got a
in a
pretty,
successful rebranding effort?
yeah, they got a pretty big role, pretty
Hmm.
important one.
Yeah.
So first of all, they need to support from the very beginning. They need to support the strategic decision to do this. They have to
Hmm.
provide the resources to the team to be able to do it correctly,
Hmm.
and they have to. There's several gates where they have important decisions they have to make because if you're going to change the name of your company and the way you go to market, yeah, they're going to be involved in that decision and have to support it. But then as you start to as you make your decisions on what the new brand will be and you're doing all the behind the scenes work in preparation for your launch,
Hmm.
their focus should shift toward building enthusiasm and
Right.
engagement among the employees
Hmm.
so that they are ready to support it as well.
Hmm.
And really start to carry that new flag for the
Right.
brand as it goes out into the marketplace, reassuring
Hmm.
customers, business partners that, as to the value of doing this and the promise that it holds. So
Hmm.
we will actually put together a leadership action plan for the CEOs and the senior folks in our client organizations. Here's what you need to do and at each step of the journey that we're going to
Hmm.
be going through. And
Hmm.
then we're able to check in with them and say, okay, here's the messages that you would use for this.
Hmm.
Here's the events you need to show up at, to convey the new brand here and go through that action list with them so that it's nothing falls through the cracks
Yeah.
and that they build the necessary anticipation and then engagement in the new brand.
Well said. And how important is employee engagement when it comes to the success of a rebranding effort?
Yeah, employees have to be your number one ambassador of your new
Hmm.
brand.
Hmm.
So they need to understand why you're rebranding, first of all,
Hmm.
because they probably have spent their careers helping to build the brand that you
Yeah.
were,
Yeah.
and they're going to tie their success to that brand. So you have to tell them, well, your success is evolving and it's going to carry over to this new brand. Here's why we're doing it. Here's what it means. Here's what it means to you. Here's what it means to our customers.
Hmm.
Here's what you need to do to bring that brand to life in your respective part of the organization, whether it's finance or operations or sales. Here's what it
Hmm.
means to your
Hmm.
everyday job, and
Hmm.
here's how you apply it. And we will, it's always easy to tell employees what to do. It's much more difficult to take the time and the money and the effort to train them to do it.
Right.
So it's important that they be trained to live this brand and play it out in their role in the organization, so that they enthusiastically support it before you go public and before you go
Hmm.
to your customers
Well
with it.
said. So we've spoken about the role of the CEO and the leadership team. We've spoken about the importance of carrying all the employees. There are two other types of stakeholders. One is your customers, your suppliers, etc. And there's that old classical case of Nissan and Mazda cars in the US. And then there's the other aspect of aligning diverse stakeholders. I'd love to get your perspectives on handling both customers and other stakeholders.
Yeah. So you need to do a lot of research as part of a rebranding effort to understand where your customers are, where their heads are, what their aspirations
Mm.
are that you support and can help fuel. So that when you introduce your new brand to them, you connect it to their dreams. And they see it as a promise of what they can expect from you from here on out. It's a big, big lift. And so that's why, doing all that research in advance enables you to say to them, this brand is designed for you. It's not for us, it's for you.
Mm.
It's for your hopes and dreams. And you need to invest in continually reminding them that you've changed your name, why you changed your name, what it means to them, and so forth. You repeat
Yeah.
it over and over again. It's the essence of communications is
Yeah.
repetition. So
Mm.
you need to, have a campaign afterwards that continues to do that and really
Mm.
motivates them. Um, and you need to deliver it consistently. And this is one of the things that a lot of organizations struggle with is, when you launch, you want to have as many as humanly possible brand elements change to your new brand so that the customer isn't seeing old brand and new brand, because that's confusing to them. And they're like, well, wait a second, did you change your name or not? Why is that truck I see driving down the street still have your old name on it? Or why does
Mm.
your packaging still have your old
Yeah.
name, and so forth? So you really need to make sure that as many of those consumer touch points change over on your launch day as
Mm.
possible. And you've got really good reasons why the ones who haven't, that,
Mm.
what time that they will switch over as well.
Mm.
Um, and engage the consumer in it. Find new exciting ways that they can experience the brand. They can be in touch with it so that it sinks in more and they begin to think solely of your new brand. Other stakeholders, you have to be very respectful of what impact your brand change has on their business.
Mm.
So we will work with the legal teams and the finance teams to make sure that, if it's corporate documentation that needs to change, if it's if you're changing everything from your checks to your insurance policies to anything that works with other business partners, that they are notified in the right order and sequence so that they can make their adjustments in their systems
Mm.
so that they can pay you, so that you can do business with them, so that they can say good things about it out in the marketplace as well. You really have to spend time, in touch with all these business partners so that they feel like they're part of your change as well too.
Right.
It's not being done to them, but they're part of it.
Great response. Uh, in this world of technology and social media, what, in your view, is the impact of this social media, which is moving at the speed of nanoseconds? And, where anything gets picked up, so even if the slightest error in a rebranding effort gets picked up, I'd love to get your thoughts on how is technology beginning to shape the future of rebranding?
So one of the biggest things that technology has done is it's enabled people to express their support of or lack of support of your
Mm,
new rebranding. And this
mm.
is what we saw both with Elon Musk's rebranding from Twitter to
Yeah,
X, a very
yeah,
abrupt and, still somewhat confusing
yeah.
strategy behind that. And
Mm,
then with Jaguar as well too, earlier or in early late
mm,
2024 is the social media sphere jumped on those and just started posting and memes and distaste for what was happening and so forth, that then the companies were having to battle that. And they were, they were having to make an extra effort to try to explain why they were changing the names and what the new brand was and so forth. So social media turned on them
mm.
in both of those
Yeah,
cases. You have to expect that there's going to be criticism of your
mm,
rebranding. It's
mm.
inevitable.
Yeah,
But if you anticipate it, if you have answers for what you know are going to be the most common criticisms of it and
mm,
so forth, if you proactively put some of that into your announcement messaging that you put out there, you can start to mitigate it a little bit and then find yourself not facing this, tsunami of criticism on social
yeah.
media, but you can start to use it to your advantage to share the exciting news of what the rebranding is doing.
Well
So
said. Well said.
increasingly, social media is playing more of a role in the success of your rebranding.
Absolutely. Jim, I have time for two more questions for you. Uh, we've spoken about, some examples of where rebranding has worked. Can you give me an example or a couple of examples where rebranding did not work and why?
So Jaguar and X are a couple examples of that. There's been several out of UK. They tried to change the name of the postal system over there,
Mm,
and it didn't work. And
mm,
it got a lot of backlash, and people criticized it. There was a delivery service, much like an Amazon here that we're accustomed to, that delivered packages directly to your home. Did the same kind of thing, spend a ton of money on, relabeling trucks and uniforms and everything, and found themselves having to change it because the criticism was too strong. I think in most of those cases, it's an issue of putting too much importance on the brand
mm,
and not enough on the communications about the new brand
mm,
to customers so that they understood it and accepted it. If you don't do that, if you just put it out there and launch, you say, look, this is our new brand, you're almost opening the door for criticism and then for challenges with it going
mm,
forward.
mm. Well said. And my last question to you, what advice would you give to leaders who are hesitant to invest in rebranding owing to costs or risks?
So, and to a question that you asked earlier is, there are three different ways that you can kind of approach this, what you think is a rebranding. And that is, you can refresh your current brand,
Yeah.
which is more of a visual makeover, where
Mm.
you come up with a new logo, new color
Yeah,
palette, some new messaging and so forth. That's a refresh. We see those all the time
correct.
on a regular basis. The companies do that just to
Mm.
remain interesting and relevant and have some new news to share with
Yeah,
their customers.
yeah.
You can reposition, meaning you're changing your focus to a new audience or a new distribution path and so forth, but you're keeping the name and the brand is still pretty much the same.
Mm.
It's just the way you go to market looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
Rebranding is the whole package. It's
Mm.
it's the refresh, it's the repositioning, plus the name change, plus organizational reset to take advantage of this new brand and going to market in an entirely different way. When people are hesitant, it's because sometimes they feel like they're climbing the mountain all the way to the top to the rebrand. And as
Mm.
we talk through with them, we'll say, what you're kind of imagining here is more of a refresh, or it's more of a repositioning. Go that route. Don't dive into an entire rebranding, because
Mm.
it will require more investment,
Yeah.
a lot more energy than what you might have anticipated. So it's really like matching what's the right solution for the problem that they're trying to solve.
Mm.
And then they don't have as much hesitancy because they see that the right answer is being put in front of them.
Well said. And on that note, Jim, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey, about the rebranding experts. I think we covered a lot of very interesting ground on rebranding. You told us what was the definition. You spoke to us about misconceptions. You gave us this fascinating example of Jaguar and how they had to virtually rebrand and pivot completely. You also talked about technology. I think we covered the role of different forms of leaders and stakeholders in the entire rebranding effort. And you also gave me some very interesting examples of rebranding. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.